Many of us have had the opportunity to fly in an airplane. Not everybody, but many of us have had the opportunity to fly in the airplane. And I fly a lot. I used to. I don't fly so much anymore. And I really learned to dislike flying. Airports are just no fun after 9/11. You can't bring knives or guns or anything on the planes anymore. And the plastic spoons at the airport, because I don't know what people were doing with spoons before 9/11, but anyway. One of my favorite parts of flying, though, is still that part where the flight attendants go over the operation of the plane. And one of my favorite parts is when they go over the operation of the seatbelt. Even if you have never flown before, I think in about 30 seconds, you could have figured out the seatbelt on your own, right? Huh? Huh? Huh. And yet, we still review the operation of the seatbelt as though it was some sort of fun. Some things are just self-evident, right? I think a 5-year-old, click, okay. And they do this for several other things too. They do it for the doors, right? If the plane should happen to crash, please make your way to a door. Thank God you mentioned that, because I don't know if I'd have thought of that on my own. Now, there's some things that are self-evident. Some things aren't self-evident, like with the door thing. The door might be behind you. The closest door might be behind you. Okay, that's good. Maybe I wouldn't have thought of that on my own. Some things are really self-evident. Some things are really not self-evident at all, right? When the mask, if the plane should depressurize, if the cabin should depressurize, the masks will pop out of the cabin on top of you. And what do they say? That's the self-evident part, right? Clunk, okay, I guess that's for me to breathe. You don't need, but then they say something that's really not self-evident at all. They say, put yours on first. That's really not something that would occur to most of us, right? We have an internal clock. If I'm riding with my 5-year-old child, I'm not going to put my mask on first, am I? If the person next to me is somehow incapacitated or unable to do it on their own, human nature for most of us would, even if that's a complete stranger, human nature is, here, let me put your mask on first. Why do they have to say that? I wish they'd take all the other stuff about the seatbelt and the doors and throw that away and just say, hey, listen, this is really important. Focus on this. If the masks should pop out of the sky, you've got to put yours on first. Why? Because you're no help to anybody if you're dead. That's one of the rules, right? Or if you're incapacitated, you're no help to anybody. When the sheriff was here a couple weeks ago, I don't know if you were able to see this, and I don't remember which session, because there were 2 sessions that some of the leaders met with him beforehand. But he said something that was really, really, really interesting to me when he was talking about some of the mass shootings that had been gone on. Back in the Columbine days, a long time ago, the rule for policemen at these shootings was to stand there and wait for the SWAT team to show up. Now, the problem with this was, that was the rule, that was the protocol. The problem with this was, is while the police were standing outside waiting for the SWAT team to show up, what was going on inside the building, inside the movie theater, inside the high school, inside wherever it was going on. So they changed the rule a few years ago. And what they now are telling first responders to do is don't wait, get in there. But here's, now that makes sense. I think your general, basically your first responder mentality was probably had to hold back to not go in there, right? You know, those first responder people, that's what they're trained to do. But here is the non-self-evident part of what they train them to do. You go into the school, and there lying on the ground is someone who's been shot or hurt, and they're dying. You are trained to step right over them and keep going. Wow, how must that be, especially for a first responder? How must that had to have been trained into these people to not stop? And when you think about it, just for a minute, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Keep going and looking for the guy that's doing the person, it's always a guy, doing the damage. Keep going, looking for the person doing the damage. But you have to, could you imagine? I couldn't imagine. Could you imagine sitting next to an incapacitated 5-year-old going, wait, let me put my mask on first. Let me get myself set. That is really counterintuitive. The word for that is counterintuitive. And what we're talking about today is commitment. The theme for the month is commitment. And commitment has some stuff. In January, we talked about purpose. You all remember that, right? We talked about purpose. And then in February, we talked about courage, because purpose takes courage. This month, we're talking about commitment. Talk about courage and commitment. Last week, Holly introduced us to Quillen Shin and Laura Town. Quillen Shin wandered around the South forming Universalist churches. You think there was not a period of time where Quillen Shin sat down and said to himself, you know what? Why bother? And Laura Town in the 1860s started a school for people who weren't allowed to go to school. How much commitment did you have to be able to do that? It must have been unreal, the amount of commitment. But there's a shadow side of commitment. The shadow side of commitment, we call it in America nowadays, we call it burnout. Have you heard of burnout? I'm sure, has anybody ever been burnt out? Over something, right? Even if it's just babies with diapers. Please, not one more, right? There are things where we hit a moment of time where we just can't keep going. We can't do it anymore. And when those moments happen, that's called compassion fatigue. Have you heard that term, compassion fatigue? It's a big word. If you've been through something in your life, compassion fatigue is a real big thing. The risk with compassion fatigue is that you lose your commitment. You just sort of say, as Quillen Shin could easily have said, I'm going back to Philadelphia, I'm going to open me a barbershop, I'm going to make some money and have some fun, or whatever it is he did. I don't know, Holly, what did he do? He wasn't a barber, I just made that up. He was always a minister. Well, that's a separate story altogether. I started talking about, in Joys and Concerns and Celebrations and Concerns, I started talking about Chicago. And I was actually my wife and I were out having a dinner, and they had it on the TV. And I said to the lady, we were sitting at the bar eating, and I said, if you don't turn it off, I'm leaving. I couldn't do it anymore. I'm up to here. I can't watch. I had to stop watching The Daily Show. I couldn't do it anymore. And I just know that doesn't mean that I'm not committed to the welfare of the United States. It doesn't mean that I'm not committed to playing my part, but I am experiencing personally compassion fatigue around some of the things, the yelling and screaming. We all know someone who is not very often exhausted. Do you know that person? They can just go and go and go, right? I'm going to make another 100 sandwiches for the homeless shelter. I'm going to make another 100 sandwiches for the soup kitchen. And then every now and then, if I see another sandwich, I can't do it anymore. You have to step back. And there's some shame and there's some guilt around that, isn't there, right? When you step back, I don't want to make any more sandwiches. What's wrong with you? Have you lost your commitment? No, I haven't lost my commitment. I'm just exhausted. Mary Oliver's words that Carol read at the beginning of the service bear some repeating. You don't have to be good. You don't have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. And what she didn't say, but what I couldn't help but thinking when I heard that poem read, I heard that poem read on Monday, having nothing to do with church. Someone read that in a group. What I couldn't help but thinking was, you only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves, even if every now and then that's you. And that's okay. We all know that's okay. If I say to you, put your mask on first, you're going to say to me, duh, of course. But what are you going to do? What is the urge inside you? Is it guilt? Is it shame? What is it that makes you feel the urge to put that mask on that child next to you first? What is it that forces you as a first responder, and I'm not trying to put any one of you in their shoes, but as a first responder, to step over that 12-year-old boy laying in the hallway? Wow. What kind of love does that need? What kind of self-commitment does that need? And how much does the world need people with that much self-commitment and that sort of self-love, as Mary Oliver almost pointed out? And there's a great example of this in the Hebrew Scriptures, right? Well, there's lots of great examples in the Hebrew Scriptures. I picked this one out because it's sort of the Mac Daddy of all relax passages. God created the earth. He created all the animals on it, created the sun, the moon, did all that. And then what did he do? Took a break. Yeah. You know, you could almost, when I was preparing for this service, I read it in a different way. I almost read it like, and I read the message, the transcriptions, the Message version of the Bible. And it was almost, God said, this is what he said in the Message. He says, God had finished his work. On the seventh day, he rested from his work. He blessed the seventh day. He made that day holy. So 6 days he creates everything. No mention about those days being holy. Seventh day comes around, takes a break. He says, you know what? This is good. I'm going to bless this day. He made it holy because on that day he rested from his work and all the creating God had done. There's a message in there from ancient Jews. Whether you believe God created man in his image or man created God in his image doesn't matter in this particular passage. What matters is take a break, rest, and relax. So what I did was, let me tell you what I did. I love handouts. So in your order of service is a little teeny tiny handout, and there are 30 different versions of this. So if you got one that doesn't make any sense to you, there's a stack on the fishbowl back there. You can pick another one. And I tried to calm these down. Some of them were affluent. You know, take a trip to Hawaii. Okay, man. So what I did was I went around the internet trying to find self-care things. Because the problem with self-care is it seems self-indulgent. If you notice, we also, thanks to Donna's not here, but we modified the cover of the order of service. If you notice the message on the cover of the order of service, this is true. It may seem contradictory, it may seem counterintuitive, but this is true. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it's self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare, which is a nicer way of saying you're no help to anyone if you're dead, right? You're no help to anyone if you're so tired that you can't get out of your own way. So, I got have a pampering massage, which is funny because I went to the mall and got myself a massage yesterday. I was wiped out, and my wife and I had to go to the mall, and there was the people in the mall, and they are so good. It's in Greenville, but anyway. I got a massage yesterday, which is just strange. I never get massages. Pay a professional or ask someone close to you. And I don't mean physically close to you. I mean someone. And then on the back. And then on the back, have a healthy meal. Green is good. Do yourself a favor, have a healthy meal. Did anybody get something that particularly spoke to them? Yeah.
You want me to read it?
Well, you don't have to.
So both of them do. Get a workout, make use of the nearby gym facilities and get some exercise, feel better after breaking out of beads of sweat, and listen to music. And I just love that Shelley Denham song we're going to be saying today. Putting on some music can also help you to get in touch with your soul, classical, old school, your school, whatever you want. So last night I went to go and hear the Grammy Award-winning bluegrass band, Steel Driver at Valhalla Auditorium. They were wonderful.
Wow.
So yes.
So that really touches you too, right? So you saw a concert, I got a massage. Bing.
Take a nap.
Take a nap. Yes. Do I sense some recent napping activity, Bing? Yeah, there was some recent napping activity. Yes. Take a nap is on a regular day when it's about, take a nap when the world is spinning around you. Take a nap. Feels self-indulgent, doesn't it? Anybody else get anything that ring any bells? Carol?
Play with young children.
Play with young children, yes.
Being around young children can bring out your childlike side. Being childlike is to be who you are, without a worry in the world.
Being childlike is to be who you are, yeah. Being childlike is to be who you were, wasn't it? Before you learned how to be an adult and yell and scream at other people. Adults aren't my favorite. Holly?
Simply smile. Sometimes you're smiling because you're happy, but sometimes you're happy because you're smiling.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. Smile. Now, there's two ways to smile, right? Right? You can smile with your whole face, or you can smile with just your mouth. Right? Talking about whole face smile, right? Not this smile. The smile that ain't smiling doesn't count. Only the smile that's smiling counts.
Declutter your email box. Have you been talking to Joan?
I didn't write these. I found these on the internet. I found ways for self-care. But that can be overwhelming, right? I mean, you want to do something and my email office, if I don't play right, there'll be 1,200 emails in there. And they're all useless. Only 1,200, yeah. It's too much for me. Anything else? Anybody else get anything that strikes them as funny or particularly poignant?
Oh, I like this one. Sing in the car or at home, wherever you are. Don't mumble, sing it like you own it.
Sing it like you own it. Sing it like you own it here. Yeah, you can sing it like you own it here too, exactly, right? My favorite is when Earth, Wind, and Fire comes on, because I can only sing that in the car, because God only knows, right? You can't sing, only like 2 people in the world can sing Earth, Wind, and Fire, and neither one of them are me. So this self-care, in times of stress, in times of pain, in times where that mask is dropping from the ceiling of the airplane, you know, these are not fun times. If that mask is dropping from the ceiling of the airplane, you might have other concerns, right? If the plane crashes, make your way to a door. These are things. These are urgent things. If you're the first responder, step over the people. Wow, unbelievable. What training and what self-care it takes to be able to act so counterintuitively. So I urge you to consider what self-care means for you, to consider what self-care means for you, because not that it's important for you, but self-care is important for the world around you, the people around you, the community around you, even the people right close to you. We all know that sometimes we are nicer people after we take a nap, right, Bing?
Sure.
That's right. I know sometimes I'm a nicer person after I take a nap. So I'd like to point your attention at this point to our final hymn, hymn number 1028, that asks us, when the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet us to call on our way, when we live in deep assurance of the faith that burns, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. When the fire of commitment sets our mind ablaze, not when the fire of commitment puts out our light, when the fire of commitment sets our mind and our soul ablaze. So I ask you now to join in as you are comfortable in helping us sing our final hymn.